a good feeling about this group. I think that we're going to put points on the board.
We're kind of like the McCaskey starting lineup.
Yeah, we kind of are.
We're the underdogs, and we're relishing that.
Yeah. I relish that role. I really do. The live stream's up as well, folks. Check us out, GameTime.com/GameDay. You can watch our beautiful mugs talking about high school sports here for the next 2 hours.
What else would you want, really?
I mean, if I was in front of a computer, I'd be doing it.
Exactly.
Let's get back to high school basketball. York Catholic is playing for their 10th straight district title tonight. They are facing.
That seems pretty good. That seems like a good. I think you can use the word dynasty if you get to 10 straight.
It seems good. Let's talk about that. Well, no, I think 10 straight is definitely impressive. I take nothing away from it.
Is it
good? Yes. The answer is yes.
Here's the poll today. Is that good?
Yes. No other. It is.
Is there any other team in the area who has like a running dynasty like that? I'm trying to think across any sport. I don't see any other team winning not only their division but districts 10 straight times.
Well, no, they're not. I mean, clearly, if this happened, if there was like a 4A football team that did this, my head would pop off by now.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard to whenever you're thinking about how does it stack up against anything else or how does it compare into other things. 10 straight. That's a decade's worth.
No, there's no question it's a decade's worth. They're a 2A school, and it is actually interesting. They have played, leading up to this particular title, they've played Trinity twice, Lancaster Mennonite as well, and then the last 4 years they've played DeLone Catholic. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's clearly a power structure where the same teams are competing at the top year in and year out. So in that respect, actually, Camp Hill is actually, there's some new blood, which is interesting.
And Trinity gets sneaking in there again. The Shamrocks.
The Rocks, as I call them.
When this streak started, the girls who were playing on that York Catholic team when this streak started are almost 30 now, to kind of put it into perspective for you. Like, they have kids, jobs, lives.
Right.
And York Catholic hasn't lost since they were there.
I was in college.
Yeah, and to draw a parallel to that, because that just jogged my memory, that reminds me of Wilson Westlong football team. They haven't lost a section game since 2007. And I wrote a blog article about what the world was like the last time they lost.
I love those articles.
The last time they lost a section game. The number one album, I think, was... it was Michael Bublé's Christmas album. Or no, it was Josh Groban's Christmas album, excuse me. The number one movie in America was The Departed. I'm thinking to myself, in 2007, I was a sophomore at Clarion University, and here I am now, and they still haven't lost. So you can think about, 10 years ago, let's think about that. 10 years ago, the last time that we weren't in district finals, what were you guys doing?
I was in middle school.
Like I said, I was literally really, really trying hard to wrap up college.
10 years ago. I was probably trying to get my driver's license. Actually, it took me 3 times to get my driver's license. I have no problem telling you that.
It took me a while too. We could talk about that off the air.
Yeah, it took me 3 tries. We had that unity between us.
We have all something in common.
I failed because the guy said I indicated that I was going to run a red light. I didn't run a red light. He said I gave the indication that I was going to.
I bumped a curb when parallel parking. Still nudged in there, but I bumped a curb.
Well, the first time I failed because I didn't signal coming out of the parallel parking square. And now you don't even have to parallel park most of the time. Like, my brother just took his driver's test. So he didn't have to parallel park.
I crashed into a snowbank trying to parallel park.
Usually that would cause for failure.
I can see why they failed you.
We're going to have to deduct some points for that one.
Well, there's no doubt their run is highly impressive, and they get great players from this area. And the reality is, when you win like that, players are going to want to play. Bottom line.
In small high schools, or even high school in general, when you build a culture, it continues to roll because they want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of success. They want to have their name attached to it, so all the athletes will flock to that sport. The same goes for a lot of the times for a sport where if it's failing or if it's not doing well, a lot of people don't want to have their name attached to that. Whether it's a football team that hasn't been producing well, you're like, well, I'm not going to go out for that team. They haven't won anything in years. I'm going to play soccer. They go to the States every year.
It's what we like to call a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Some coaches who have turned things around this year, like Gettysburg's boys program, first time in the States in 30 years. Spring Grove, who's 2 years removed from a 2-win season, went to districts and won a game this year. Both their coaches immediately talked about, sure, this is great to win now, but
what does it build?
Yeah, what's it? Both of them,
snowball effect.
Yeah, Bear and Brooks both said, I can't wait to see how many kids we get to come out for the team next year. The talent pool gets a little bit bigger for them to work with. And kids want to, like you said, kids want to be around that. Kids want to be part. Oh wow, we have a good basketball team. Let me go try out now. And maybe he turns into the next whatever.
Yeah, whenever you have a successful program, and not to say that these sports are competing against each other, but what it does is these kids that would normally say, well, I really like this sport, but this team's better, and maybe I could do that. Maybe they switch their mind, they change their mind, and they start something in a different sport. So success draws in like you said, the talent pool. It brings out more interest, and you know what? It makes your good players better too, because they feel better about themselves. When you're talking about psyches of teenagers, and not to get too psychological here, but when kids,
you're right.
When kids feel like they're a part of something and they feel like they have the better chance for success, they play better.
No, there's no question. Now, Brandon, I know you weren't actually at the Lone Camp Hill, the girls' game.
I was not. Heard plenty about it.
Do you have a feeling on Camp Hill?
I know I saw actually Camp Hill girls yesterday at the Giant Center. They were playing West Perry before I got there, and I believe they actually ended up upsetting West Perry, if I remember correctly. West Perry's a 1 seed.
Gotcha.
I think Camp Hill came in. Anyway, yeah, they're a pretty solid team. They're pretty stingy. They didn't do anything drastic to beat DeLone. DeLone got in some foul trouble, and Camp Hill just kept chugging away. I mean, Camp Hill had a pretty solid season as well. I know Trinity on the other side of the bracket's another stingy team. We'll talk about later when DeLone plays.
They played well. They played real well against Catholic the other day.
Yeah. Trinity is another tough team. I mean, they've played West York and York Catholic 3 times combined, which are arguably the 2 top teams in our league. And they lost, I think, in 3 games. They lost by combined like 10 points or something like that to those 2 teams. So Trinity's pretty good as well. But Camp Hill, they got to go up against York Catholic. So I'm going Irish.
I'm going Irish.
I mean, unless we jinxed it and all this talk about a dynasty and then they throw it away tonight.
Kiss of death.
Yeah, I'm going Irish. West York girl. Well, I went West York girls on this preview I wrote up for us. I said West York girls will be playing in the championship. They're not. They lost yesterday to Greencastle Antrim 42-40. This was a huge surprise to me. I thought West York girls were certainly going to win the district tournament. I realize it's not the easiest thing, and single elimination basketball drives me absolutely bonkers. But and I mean that in not a good way. But they lost to a team that honestly they scrimmaged earlier this year. Granted, Greencastle Antrim was without their 3 really fine players on their team, but West York blew them off the court during an early season or preseason scrimmage. So that was obviously a surprise. With that being said, West York girls are still 27-1 this year. They still have a ticket booked for the state tournament. They still had a great year. I take nothing away from their team or the job they have done this year, because I think that they have done, headlined by their coach Darryl Wilderson. I think they've done a first-class job. I want to talk about the Cedar Crest boys basketball team facing the William Penn boys basketball team in the Class 4A title game. I have high intrigue in this game, obviously, certainly because of William Penn. I've been following them all year. They've had a great season. I think their coach, Troy Sowers, does a great job. They play an exciting brand of basketball. But Cedar Crest, this is a rematch of last year's title game as well. John, what can you tell the listeners out there about Cedar Crest?
It's hard to put your thumb on exactly what they do great that makes them such a good team. If I had to compare them to somebody in the upper echelon, I would say they're like the San Antonio Spurs, because they're just fundamentally sound. They do what they're supposed to do. They have 4 guys averaging double digits in the playoffs so far. Evan Horn is a fantastic shooting guard, very athletic.
Great player.
Their point guard Booker, who just seems to facilitate. They've been together for a long time, so it's like they're inside each other's heads. They know exactly where the other is going to be. They got the big guy Eberhard in the middle, 6'7".
He bangs on the boards.
Yeah, so it's not to say like, oh, they're super athletic or they're super fast or they have lockdown defense. It's just that what they do is they come out and they play fundamental basketball.
If I'm not mistaken, an experienced team.
Oh yeah. Then they defeated McCaskey in the league finals, and you could say that McCaskey had more athletes or they were the faster team, but it didn't matter because Cedar Crest was able to control the tempo. They were able to play their game, and I think that's one of their biggest attributes is they are able to play their style of basketball and really disrupt the rhythm of what their opponent is trying to do. So they
have their system and they believe in it,
and they control the pace. They install it early and often, and if you're trying to run on them, like, no, we're going to slow it down. Or if you're trying to slow them down, like, no, let's heat it up. They'll try to make you uncomfortable. That's exactly what they do, but they're comfortable in every facet of the game.
What is your I have a gut feeling on the game, but I want to ask what your gut feeling is.
I haven't seen York in person yet, but to look at it and see the scores...
Oh, that's unacceptable. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but to see some of the scores they have on there, like Wilson, and it's hard to say that Man, I want to pick Cedar Crest, but but I'm leaning York to be.
No, that's a very fair answer, and I understand what you're saying. I was actually going to ask you guys: is it bad that I'm saying I kind of want to see York High win? Or I mean, is that like blasphemy for a reporter to say that?
It's not biased because it's in your area, and like I said, I'd like to see Cedar Crest win, but I'm not to hope my LL friends aren't too hard on me there, but I think York could edge them. And would I be surprised if Cedar Crest won? Absolutely not at all. But just looking through numbers, and I know numbers do lie sometimes, and you stack things up, and it doesn't matter until you roll the ball out onto the court. But York might have a slight advantage here.
I think they do. They've had a great year. Like I said, I think that they have an underrated coach. I think he does a very good job with their program. There's something about Cedar Crest. I get the feeling they're a gritty team and a tough team. I think it's going to be a good game. But
they're on a hot streak because they've blown out everybody.
Some momentum.
They've blown out everybody in the district playoffs so far, and like I saw with Columbia, who I did not think was going to beat Hanover.
That's unbelievable.
Sometimes momentum in a tournament atmosphere will just keep rolling.
I'm with you. Again, single elimination basketball. Funky things happen.
Absolutely.
It's just the ball bounces. A team can be hot from 3-point territory.
If a team gets hot at the right time, like John said, they're a teenager psyche. They get some momentum, like Columbia. Like that team, I saw them 3 times earlier this year, and they looked dejected. They looked like they didn't want to play basketball, and they come out now and they look like they're playing in the NBA. Like they're just playing out of their minds right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get on that. That's an unbelievable story. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Cedar Crest Cedar Crest William Penn. My apologies. Tomorrow night should be a good one. Check it out. It'll be live streamed on GameTimePA.com. That was a nice segue. Folks, you're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK Game Day with GameTimePA. We will be back shortly. Come back.
Hey athletes, does the winter weather dampen your sports training? It doesn't have to. Take your game inside at Backyard University, York's spectacular indoor sports training facility, right at home in your backyard. Located inside Fairmont Gym at 201 South Charles Street in Red Lion, Backyard University is a beautiful, state-of-the-art indoor complex for all of your sport needs. Featuring a complete baseball and softball training complex with batting cages, pitching tunnels, and a turf field for the entire team, Backyard hosts camps, clinics, and competitive youth travel teams to play in the region's top tournaments. Join York Revolution greats Jason Espedo, Daryl Harang, and Corey Thurman for one-on-one training. And take your speed and agility to a whole new level with professional trainer David Brixius from Explosive Sports Performance. Play your game year-round at Backyard University, right at home in your backyard. Visit online at backyard-university.com.
The York College Spartans play here. Catch York College basketball all season on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. Your home for York's home teams.
And now a steal at the other end. Wagner picks one away, a foot race, and lays home another one. Dribbles foul line, a jump pass down to Shea, and she has 10.
The spot for the Spartans. Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. First in York, first in sports. Believe it or not, spring is coming, and we've got the bases covered like Etch with dirt during a tantrum. Join Darryl Henry and Atlantic League Manager of the Year, Mark Mason, for Revs Hot Stove Weekly, every Friday at 4. Breaking news each week with the latest player signings exclusively here first. Plus fan interaction online, interviews with players, and we'll highlight really good calls from umpires. Maybe we should have stopped with interviews with players. Revs Hot Stove Weekly, Fridays at 4 on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Security in life isn't something you just wish for. You build it with a strong financial plan. Start with Northwestern Mutual. Together, we'll design a disciplined and balanced approach to financial security, because reaching your goals is something we both want to work toward. To learn more, contact me, Dan McGarry, at my office on the Square in York. Look for the blue awnings. Who's helping you build your financial future? The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The Irish are going for their record 10th straight District 3 Girls AA title in our high school basketball Game of the Week, brought to you by WellSpan Sports Medicine. The York Catholic girls will face Camp Hill Thursday at 6 p.m. with the District 3 Girls AA Championship on the line from the Giants Center in Hershey. Ron Ruman and Andy Bria will be on the call, so join us for our high school basketball Game of the Week, brought to you by WellSpan Sports Medicine, Thursday at 6, York Catholic versus Camp Hill, here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Hi, I'm York High Boys basketball coach Troy Sowers. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. First in York, first in sports.
Hey folks, you're back. Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350. Teddy Feinberg, John Buffone, Brandon Stoneberg. We're breaking down high school sports left and right here. Up until 6 p.m., so stick with us. Let's get back to high school hoops, shall we? We're not done with the District 3 tournament, certainly not. Brandon, I want to kick the ball to you. DeLone Catholic girls, they lost in the Class AA semifinals to Camp Hill. As we mentioned, Camp Hill plays York Catholic tonight for the AA championship, but Squirettes, they play Trinity now for the third place game, and basically it's a high pressure situation because it's essentially win or you go home, and they're a good team. I guess what were your thoughts, A, on the loss, and B, the situation they find themselves in?
On the loss, we're going to talk about this in the Hanover-Columbia game too. It comes down to DeLone had their top two players, Shipley and Conley, both foul out. So I mean, Coach Eckenrose said,
yes, this happened. I just want this. You just said this, but this happened in both games we're talking about right now.
Yeah, right now. Foul trouble is the common theme here for this segment, guys. We're really going to bash on the refs a little bit. No, I'm kidding. DeLone, you go to overtime or double overtime without your two top players. I mean, some of their bench people stepped up. Carly Coleman came in and hit 3 threes in overtime, and she was huge. She's a 5 to 8 minute player, a game player normally. But Camp Hill shot 40 free throws, and you never want that big of a game decided with at the free throw line. How many did 40 for Camp? DeLone had I think it was 25.
Huge disparity,
and you never want to be in that big of a game in that big of an atmosphere and have 65 free throws total, and the winning team have 40. It's just not the way you want to see a game.
I don't feel comfortable necessarily commenting on that because I wasn't at the game. I mean, for all I know, it was accurately officiated. Mm-hmm. The point is that it's hard when when I edited that story when it came in, and my first thought was it's hard to play in a game when your best players aren't on the court.
Yeah. And I mean, Conley and Shipley have carried that team, especially on the offensive end, through huge shifts of time.
Conley off the court?
Does anything break up the rhythm of a basketball game more than going to the free throw line every 4 or 5 seconds?
It's brutal stuff,
it is so hard to get into a rhythm, offensively, defensively. It is mentally trying to keep things in order whenever every 10 to 20 seconds. And not saying that it's not saying the fouls aren't warranted. Yeah. I'm just saying from an athlete's standpoint, it is so hard to just keep it together when every 10 seconds you're standing at the free throw line again. And admittedly, I know I did whenever I was standing on the side for a free throw. The first one, I'm kind of like Space Cadet, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't even know if they made it. Second one, okay, now I got to box out. Okay, so I think it's easy to lose your focus.
I agree,
and I think that hurt DeLone too. DeLone likes to get up and down with Conley and Laughlin running the ball, and Shipley's a lot of her points comes on after a fast break. Conley will dish it out to her in the wing, and she'll knock down a jumper. So to be bogged down in that slow game already hurt DeLone. Coach Eckenrode mentioned afterward losing your two top players and trying to go through 2 overtimes without them.
I feel like every time I look at the box score, Conley dropped 25 to 30. Bare minimum.
I mean, she's arguably the league's best player, and you're playing without her. DeLone, tough loss for them. It's the first time in 6 years it won't be DeLone, York Catholic in the final. I mean, it's also been a heartbreaking year for Conley in general. In volleyball, they settled for silver. They had an early exit in districts. They lost a heartbreaker in the league final this year to West York in basketball.
Well, their year's not done. They gotta win tonight.
No, they win tonight, and they still make state. So I mean, there's still hope there. They get Trinity, who, like I said, they lost to York Catholic twice by 4. DeLone and York Catholic were kind of even. So if that transitive property works, maybe this game's pretty even. Trinity's record wasn't all that impressive, 13-10. But like I said, they're Coach Bankos, who's a well-respected coach in this area, afterward complimented how stingy they are, how tough they are to put away. And he said
their schedule was hard.
Yeah, they're a tough team to put away. So DeLone will have their hands full once again. The other game we had, once again, foul trouble was an issue. John can chip in here. We have Hanover, Columbia. We had Columbia, who lost by 20 earlier in the year to Hanover in a game that was a 30-point blowout at halftime. And now Columbia comes back and takes a double-digit lead multiple times through the second, third, and fourth quarter of this one.
It is worth pointing out, well, and you just said it, Brandon, it is worth pointing out, and again, I'm actually gathering a lot of this information after reading your guys' stories, but Hanover dug themselves, or Columbia dug Hanover into an early hole.
Columbia came out hot. I mean, Hanover shot, I forget the stat, it was like 9 for 23 or something like that in the first half. They shot 58% on Monday and scored 93 points, and then they come out 2 days later and they shoot 9 for 23. The 2-day thing, the 1 day's rest was an issue both coaches talked about. Coach Johns for Columbia thought they had an advantage because Columbia hadn't played in 4 or 5 days. Hanover was coming off a 1 day's rest. Where the starters played, all the way up until the last 2 minutes of the game. Maybe that was an issue also. But anyway, 56 combined free throws between the two of them. 3 starters for Hanover fouling out. 1 starter for Columbia fouling out. Almost everyone was playing with 3 or 4 fouls toward the end.
Tough.
I mean, Hanover, in general, their glaring weakness all season was a lack of depth. They play 6 guys. If a 7th or 8th guy comes off the bench, they're up by 25 in the fourth quarter.
I want to say this about foul trouble again real quick because I'm hot on this topic. When you're a player and you get a couple knick-knack fouls, you automatically start playing with hesitance.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
human nature. It takes you out of the game a bit.
And that's the right move to do too, because you're no good if you're fouled out. So you'd rather be 40 to 50% effective on the court than 100% ineffective off the court.
It really takes you out of your game.
And it does. And if you're an aggressive defender, or you're
Forget about it.
somebody who tries to get a lot of steals or blocks, or tries to be a disruption underneath the basket, you can't do that. So you see a lot of these guys that just go straight up, and they're statues because they know there's absolutely no way I can take a foul here. So I'll stand here, I'll put my arms up, and that's all I can do. They'll probably go around me, but I can't pick up another foul.
You can't, and you know that in the back of your mind, the whole time.
And in this game, it was a lot of tic-tac. I mean, there's hand checks at half court being called.
Tough.
Columbia was in the penalty in the entire fourth quarter. Hanover's Cam Ballsherman, who's their glue guy, their defensive stopper, fouled out, and then Jacob Rhodes, who's their defensive stopper down low and their biggest rebounder, fouled out on back-to-back possessions for Hanover while they were trying to make a comeback. So the odds are already stacked up against them. Plus, they're playing a team who all of a sudden thinks they're LeBron James and company over there.
It's unbelievable because I covered Columbia quite a few times throughout the season,
story.
And they play in a tough league because they're the smallest school they're one of the smaller schools in their section in the league in general. They're playing against they're one of only 3 AA teams in the section and the league for that matter. They're playing against teams like Lancaster Mennonite, who made the state quarterfinals in AAA last year, and they're playing them in the AA finals, and they're in the same section. And they have to play like Lancaster Catholic, who's AAA. They play Northern Lebanon's AAA. I believe Elko is AAA as well. So this is a battle-tested team. They got into this district playoffs, I think, by 1 win, basically, and they squeaked in. But this is a team that is all confidence right now. They went into this thing saying, we're tired of people telling us we're going to lose. We're tired of people picking against us every game. And they went in there. They beat. They had to win the play-in game. Then they go to Lancaster Mennonite. And they win on a great play by Derek Sheckard, who stole the ball with 5 seconds left and then converted on a layup to completely upend number 2 Lancaster Mennonite. Then he goes in and has 24 points against Hanover, makes 14 of 18 free throws in the fourth quarter alone. Whenever the game gets really touchy, so them ice water in the veins. And this he's 5'7". They don't have a kid really over 6'1". You can build all you want on the rosters where it says 6'2" or a lot of 6'1s. I don't see a kid over 6 foot or 6'1" on that team, and they're going to be they're outsized in every game they play.
Coach Johns for Columbia afterwards said Austin Hartman is their 5, and on most teams he'd probably be a 3.
Yeah, he's barely 6 foot, maybe, and he said he'd be a 3 for any other team. He's their center basically.
For them to lose by 20 earlier in the year to them, and then come back and beat the 2, the 3, and the 7 seed.
Well, Hanover's coach Myers said that he told his team ahead of time this isn't the same Columbia team at all. He said they're playing extremely confident. They've a completely different team. And one of Coach John for Columbia's best quotes was, I learned today that we're a completely different team than we were at Christmas time because
good teams get better as the season goes along.
Good teams get better.
The best ball right now.
They got better tenfold.
They got better, and then they shot 29 free throws in the second half and overtime combined. Columbia did. They only had 1 field goal in the fourth quarter, and they still held Hanover off. Krieger eventually got an N1 with 16 seconds left to tie it, but he's looking around in overtime. He's got one other starter, Will McQueen, who started the game 1 for 10 on his wing. He's got 3 other guys who very, very rarely play, and it showed in overtime. There was some mental mistakes. They made 3 straight stops when it was tied at 63, and 3 straight times they had turnovers, and it was just all miscommunication and just tough play. So I think it finally just wore on them. The starters, what was left of the starters, were tired. The depth issue that finally came into play. Everyone knew all year if Hanover gets in foul trouble, they're in trouble. And this game, they were in plenty of foul trouble.
How does this affect their state tournament standing?
They have to win tomorrow night. Tomorrow night at at East Pennsboro, 6:45. They had to beat Camp Hill, and Camp Hill is
number 1 seed, right?
Yeah, Camp Hill's a 1 seed in an awful matchup for Hanover. This is
unfortunate.
exactly the team that can beat. They play a lot like West York, who blew out Hanover. They have Schuster, who's a 6'7" guy. Finally a team has someone with size to match up with Krieger, which Hanover doesn't want. And then they have was it Franklin and Zach Kuntz on the wings that can match up well with Kraut and McQueen. So it's a nightmare matchup, I think, for Hanover. I think that they could be motivated again. They came out angry against Upper Dauphin and played well, but they're playing again their third game in 5 days, and this isn't exactly walking the park against Camp Hill.
A part of me, I feel like they've had a great year. And I know some people have said schedule this. I feel like they've had a very good season.
They played the guys that came out in the court in front of them, and they won the game.
And I give them the nod.
They don't make the schedule themselves.
Yeah, they've had a good season. So
another tough thing.
It's a vicious world out there, though.
One last thing with that one. Kyle Kraut, who scored a season high 25 points on Monday against Upper Dauphin, came out and had 5, and 3 of those 5 were on a 3-pointer late in the fourth quarter, and he fouled out on the next possession.
Right.
So another.
There was no help.
No, there was no help. Krieger
3-pointer made, whistle blow.
Yeah. And as for Columbia now, they're going to their first district title game since 2001. They haven't won the district since 1994. They're playing Trinity. Guess what? They're going to be oversized again. This is a team that's playing with a chip on its shoulder. They're going into every game almost mad. Every game they're going into, you can see, and it starts with Coach Johns, who looked like he was about to get into a fight with somebody when you first looked at it. He had that glare on his look, like, I am tired of people telling us we're going to lose every game. I am tired of people telling us we're the small school, we're not tall enough, we're not athletic enough, we don't do this well enough, and that has leaked down to his players, where they say we're tired of people telling us we're not going to win. We're going to go out there, we're going to smack you in the mouth, and then we're going to see what we can do. And they play a ferocious style of ball. They have great ball movement. For as much as the one thing that works out to their advantage is they basically do have 5 guards out there. So what they're doing is they're moving the ball around. And whenever you have as much as there is a disadvantage on defense guarding these tall people, they're kind of an advantage for their style of offense because they can move the ball around at will and they can find open guys who are slashing to the basket. So I'm not saying they're going to go in and they're going to blow out Trinity, but I'm saying they have proven that they are playing their absolute best basketball right now. And you know what? If I thought they were going to lose to Mennonite, honestly, I thought they were going to lose to Hanover. I'm not going to do that anymore. I think that I'm not going to just join the bandwagon all of a sudden, but I am going to say that I give them a chance for the way that they're playing.
It's interesting because, here I am complaining about the single elimination basketball, but that's what makes it cool.
Yeah.
You get real hot, and then, you can be in a position like that where you look up and you say, our season's not done. And, does it get any better than that as a high school athlete?
And that was Columbia's first ever win at the Giant Center. So that was a big thing for the school. And like we were talking about before, how you can continue to build a culture. Not that Columbia had any kind of an issue with that, but what it is now you're having a team that's going to states, a team that could potentially win the district. You're going to generate a lot of excitement, and for a small town like Columbia, that can generate a lot of excitement within the community. I think you're going to see a lot of good things come from this.
And a very well-coached team, and Coach Myers from Hanover said afterwards, one of the better coach jobs he's seen on the Columbia side of Coach Johns. They took Hanover's at their best. Their bread and butter is getting out in transition and running, and between Columbia's transition defense and the referees calling 1,000 fouls, Hanover couldn't get out and run. So
yeah.
I'll say one thing about Coach Johns. He is a phenomenal motivator, and he can install. His kids have bought in, and that as a high school coach, that's the best thing you can do is have the kids buy into what you're trying to get accomplished. And every one of them has bought into what he's doing there. He has them, and now you're seeing the fruits of that labor. In only his second year there, he took over last year. They got to districts. Then you're seeing the progress now, and you're seeing his plan kind of unfold now. So you got to be impressed with that. He's all basketball. If he's not talking about his team's basketball, he's tweeting about basketball. Or he's talking to us about somebody else's team or a college basketball or the NBA. He is all basketball. That guy is 24/7 basketball. So I got to be happy.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Brandon, I know you wanted to talk on DeLone Catholic boys falling and New Oxford girls falling as well.
Just quickly. The Gettysburg boys too. They found themselves in state playoffs, 5th place game. We talked about that already a little bit. Their first time in 30
Definitely
years.
Historic for them. Historic turnaround. They're a 10 or 11 seed. They were
a low seed, 11 seed, and they ended up finishing in 5th place to get a state berth. They're a very well-coached team. Coach Barry, they have a very well-rounded team. They got 5 guys who can all shoot and all handle the ball, which gives a lot of teams matchup problems. And they're a confident young bunch. Like, I think they only have one senior in the starting lineup, and they all are just very. They like to celebrate when they hit threes, but they hit a lot of them. So that, you know,
what do they do when they hit a three?
We'll do it off the air. I'll show you it off the air. But, but they a very confident young bunch. So they're all coming back next year. So watch out for Gettysburg. We talked a little bit about DeLone boys. Lawrence Williams' first year. They had the legendary coach Jim Dooley for a long time. Passed away. Tom Becker took over last year. It's kind of an interim job. Took him to the playoffs, and then this year Lawrence Williams. Who was also a good friend of Jim Dooley's, took over. A young coach, very animated, very loud. His team kind of grew with him through the year, and he talked about that.
Like us, so it's good to hear.
Yeah. But we joked with him afterward. I asked him after his last regular season game, is 500 what you wanted? He joked that he wanted 18-4, 17-3 because he's that confident. But he said it's based on what they're going through. Their top 2 scorers from last year, 2 of the best players in that division, both tear the ACLs preseason. They lose those 2 guys. Their best players are mostly sophomores and juniors, so he's a young team. He's a young coach. They developed together. It's been a fun team to watch.
And New Oxford girls falling.
New Oxford, that was also a good story. They made their run. They lost. I think they got 1 win in district playoffs.
They did.
And they're a very good defensive team. They're a very deep team, very well coached team. They pulled a big upset late in the year against Red Lion to kind of get them where they were going. But definitely another thing, like we're talking about program building, it's big for them to kind of get tryouts for next year, get people interested in the program, and they definitely generated some buzz. And they were another fun team to watch. And DeLone with Coach Williams, like I was saying, how he's young and his team's young, they grew together. Like you can see all year, they're fun to watch. And then, he chest bumps his players after big plays like that, gets very into it, and it's a big family there, so it's cool to watch them as well.
It is good stuff. Folks, we'll be back. We're going to talk about the McGaskey,
the Fab Five,
the McGaskey, Reading, Kerfluffle, the Fab Five, when they played Harrisburg the following day. When we come back here shortly, Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350.
Turning a double play takes teamwork, and so does preparing for life's challenges. Murray Securus works with you, hand in hand, providing thoughtful solutions to help you plan for the future. Team up with Murray Securus for safer, more secure risk management, personal insurance, health benefits, wealth management, even cutting-edge human resource solutions for individuals and small to large businesses. Living life in a winning way just takes a little teamwork. Call Murray Securus today at 397-9600 or go to murrayins.com.
Under center with McNabb and Malone. You cannot win a Super Bowl with that kind of defense.
Offensively, we know what they're capable of doing, but they didn't run the football extremely well. But you got to remember, this offense from Chicago, Matt Forte, it all starts with the running game with Matt Forte, and then it goes to what do you decide to do with Jay Cutler? Because he's the Tony Romo of the Midwest. Just stay patient, because it's going to happen.
Under center, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on NBC Sports Radio. Sports Radio 1350 WOIK honors the Shipley Energy Student Athlete of the Week.
This week's Shipley Energy Boys Student Athlete of the Week is Nate Newberry of Biglerville Wrestling. After taking 4th in last year's District 3 Class AA tournament, Newberry won the 145-pound title this past weekend. And this week's Shipley Energy Girls Student Athlete of the Week is Claudia Mingora of York Suburban Basketball. She scored a game-high 21 points, including 8 points in the 4th quarter, all from the free-throw line, and a 45-37 District 3 tournament win over Fleetwood. For Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, I'm Ray Jensen.
Get your home ready for fall and winter and sign up for the Shipley Energy Protection Plan. For more information, visit shipleyenergy.com. The York College Spartans play here. Catch York College basketball all season on Sports Radio 1350 WOIK. Your home for York's home teams.
Here's Wessner again, behind a screen, he hits another 3! Ahead to Myers, wide open for the dunk. He jams another one, his second tonight.
The spot for the Spartans. Sports Radio 1350 WOIK. First in York, first in sports.
Hi, I'm West York boys basketball coach Bill Ackerman. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. First in York, first in sports.
Hey folks, welcome back. Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOIK. Teddy Feinberg, Brandon Stoneberg, John Buffone, all in the house. You can check us out, obviously, on the radio, but if you're so inclined, we're on our live stream at GameTimePA.com/GameDay. Talking high school basketball, talking high school athletics in general. Since I'm kind of on a rant here, don't forget to watch the York Catholic Camp Hill Class 2A District 3 Girls Championship game tonight on our live stream at GameTimePA.com. We will have 3 title games in the next 3 days successively on GameTimePA.com on our live stream. So please feel free to go there and check us out. We encourage it. Let's get back to the high school hardwood, and really interesting. Now, earlier this year, there was chatter down here in York Adams about the William Penn Harrisburg. I'll call that a Donnybrook. That was a fight, basketball fight that took place.
What qualifies for a Donnybrook? Like, how big of an altercation is that to be?
I've never even heard that term before.
You've never heard Donnybrook?
No, I thought you were talking about a guy. Donnybrook.
Yeah, I had no idea who you're talking about.
Well, you know what? I want to phrase these things correctly. I feel like a Donnybrook. There was some fists thrown in that particular fight.
Okay.
Okay. That is kind of crossing the Donnybrook line.
Okay.
A fight. Brawl, melee might be a little harsh.
Ruckus, fracas,
fisticuffs.
That all qualifies.
All right.
That all qualifies. Now this, Redding McCaskey, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. Just kind of my sense, this was more of a kerfluffle.
More words.
But I'll say this right now.
I just learned Donnybrook, one at a time.
There were massive suspensions over this. 10 players on McCaskey were suspended, and Lonnie Walker on Reading, who really is a fantastic sophomore player, was also suspended. And that, I'm going to sit here and say that led in large part to their loss against Cedar Crest. John, this affected your coverage area in all way, shape, or form. So please take the floor. Talk about the drama.
Right, and
talk about the kerfluffle.
And Donnie Brooks. But I was not there, but I can only go off of what I've talked to a few reporters who were there and people that were there. Essentially, Walker was fouled by a McCaskey player, I guess harder than what he would have liked to, or his teammates would have liked them to. So that started some chatter, pushing and shoving. And what happened was it was near the Reading bench, from what I'm told. And what happened was the McCaskey players came off of the bench and entered into this, the stare down, the pushing, the chatter, the trash talk, and you can't leave the bench. And so Walker was ejected for Reading, and the 10 players from McCaskey were reportedly ejected, which means they're ineligible for the next game. And so what that means was whatever the 5 were, where they were on the court, luckily it was the 5 starters. For McCaskey,
that's unbelievable.
That's all they had for the next game. So they had to go into the game with Harrisburg with just those 5 guys.
Can you rattle off the 5 names that played in this game? I'm fascinated by just 5 guys playing a basketball.
Kobe Gantz, Kyer Bynum, Laditra Sibley, Randolph Speller, and I think Tyler Owens was over there. Yeah, so that's usually their starting 5 anyway. So they play a majority of the game to begin with. I should say that they do play a lot of the games. Not to say they play the entire game, because that would be silly, but they went into this game against Harrisburg, and it's funny enough. Like I talked to a few of them. They said we expected to win the game. They were going against Harrisburg.
If they were at full strength, they win.
I definitely believe that. I fully believe that they do win that game.
They lost by 14.
I think 10 by when all was said and done, or 12. It might have been.
It was in the
6
right
to 48.
On the double digit threshold.
But they were winning. They were controlling the game. They were controlling the pace. But whenever you got, like I said, Kyer Bynum picked up his 4th foul in the 3rd quarter, and all of a sudden he needs to stay on the court somehow. So you're not going to get the best defensive effort out of him. And I was talking to Kobe Gantz after the game. He's like, well, Kyer fouls a lot to begin with. He's like, he's a football player. He's getting looks to play college football, and he's like, he just goes in there and he tries to rough everybody up to begin with. Yeah. So he's like, we expected that. And we were trying to, we kind of expected Kyer to get into a little bit of foul trouble. And so in the 3rd quarter, he picked up his 4th foul. So in the 4th quarter, you got to credit the kid for not picking up that foul. But how much defensive output you're really getting is in question. So they could not get into their game. They like to turn defense into offense. They like to get up and down the court. They like to outrun teams. And it's hard to outrun a team whenever you've been running the entire game, and they didn't call a whole lot of timeouts. They let them out there and they let them play. So they were out there the entire time. I give them a boatload of credit because it would have been easy for 5 guys to go out there and just lay down. They wanted to win that game. They believed they were going to win that game, and they were legitimately upset that they didn't win the game because they felt that they were going to.
Well, there's no doubt that incident really blew up that bracket. Walker is a huge difference maker, and McCaskey, who lost 10 players. I mean, come on, Harrisburg, McCaskey, the full strength McCaskey team. One would think that they would win.
Honestly, from what I saw, their 5 was better than Harrisburg's 5. A little support off the bench. And
like maybe a breather for like 2 minutes. That'd be great.
Even one guy, something like that. If they had 6, I'm going to stretch here and say if they had 6 guys, they probably win the game.
You wonder if I realize it's a highly charged situation, but you wonder just how aware the players even are about the bench rule. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now.
Well, the thing is, whenever you act on emotions, you don't really think about that. I'm sure they were aware of it after they were told, like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that rule.
No.
Or they were told, like, oh, I forgot about that rule. But in the heat of the moment, if you see, and this is true for any sport, if you're on a team and you see all of a sudden 1 or 2 guys pushing and shoving a teammate, it doesn't matter whether you're on the court, on the field, on the sidelines, a team is a brotherhood, and if you see someone pushing on one of your teammates, you're going to his aid. It doesn't matter, and you're not thinking about, oh man, I don't want to get tossed, or oh man, what are they going to be the penalties for this, or what's going to be the implications of that. You're thinking somebody's pushing my teammate. I'm going to go over there and smack him in the mouth. Right. And not to say that happened. I didn't hear of any fists being thrown or anything like that.
The point is, it's an emotional trigger,
and it's a gray area, or it's not necessarily a gray area. It's a hard thing to really. You want to be able to justify it, but you also can justify the other things. Say, hey, you can't leave the bench because you got to keep things in order. You have to keep some kind of control through a basketball game. This is a high school basketball game. You want to keep control, but if you look on the other hand and it's like, man, somebody's pushing a teammate, and you're going through months and months of blood, sweat, and tears with each other. You're going to go to his aid.
I mean, honestly, if I saw someone doing that to either one of you, I'd have the same reaction.
I appreciate
it. I would hope so.
Yeah, no problem.
If you stay on the bench because you want to play the next game, then you don't come defend
me. So then you got the guy coming back who just got pushed up by 4 or 5 guys. Like, hey, thanks for helping out, fellas. Hey, whoa, we didn't want to get tossed.
I was thinking about the semifinal. Yeah. Manheim Central outgone by Bishop McDevitt in the 3A semifinals. Yeah. How far do you think Manheim can go?
Man, that score doesn't justify how close that game was. Manheim Central looked like they could have. They got worn down, but they create a really interesting matchup for a lot of things. And Brandon can attest to this. Whenever they played Gettysburg, they have 2 tall guys that can play as guards. Taylor Funk is a sophomore, who's 6'7". He's their best 3-point shooter. He hit 5 threes.
Tough matchup right there.
Yeah, he hit 5 threes against Milton Hershey. He went off again against Gettysburg, and not to mention he also threw down a dunk in that game too. So he has inside game. He was started as a freshman, and he has improved tremendously from his freshman to sophomore year. I'm excited to see what he's going to be like in the next 2 years. He's playing some AAU basketball. He's getting a lot better. And then they have Matt Walsh, who is 6'5", but also a really good perimeter player who also brings in the dynamic of being able to drive to the basket. And then they have guys that just really fall into their roles. They have a great point guard in Tony Safiri. They have a guy Brent Eyes, who is he's not going to show up in the box score, but he keeps everybody together emotionally. He's kind of that guy that says,
"Come in here,
yeah, come in here, settle down. This is what we got to do."
I love guys like that.
Yeah, and then they have Dan Wiederecht, who's a great football player. He's not very tall, but he's gonna bowling ball you.
Brings the Buffon attitude.
Exactly. He's like as he's going to the basket, you see people getting out of the way because he comes in there like a bowling ball, and then he can make a shot or two. So. It'll depend a lot on who they end up facing. They could get a pretty nice draw. But they have to play Susquehanna in the 3rd place game. I believe they play that tonight, and at Milton Hershey. And you'll learn a lot of how they handle Susquehanna tonight. If they go out there and beat them, you're going to say, okay, this team can maybe do a little bit of damage. If they get blown out, you're hoping that they don't carry that into states. I don't think they will, because I think Chris Sherwood is another guy who I have tremendous respect for. His players love playing for him, and he's a guy that keeps the team together. And that is just a side note. They also have Matt Walsh, who defeated me in horse I don't know if you guys saw that video or not.
That's frustrating.
So you can tell how good he is. He was able to beat me.
I saw Walsh when I was covering a game with John. That was the first time I seen that team, and Walsh impressed me probably even more than Funk did. I mean, Funk had the hype.
Funk had the hump.
Yeah,
Uptown Funk.
Yeah, but Walsh, he looks like a college slasher. He's like 6'3", 6'4", probably close to it. Slash it to lane. He can hit the outside shot. He carried the team. He had 25, 26, something like that against Gettysburg, and he was probably the most impressive. And then a very good compliment to Funk, who's 6'7".
So you think they can make some moves?
Yeah, and like I said, it'll be all about matchup. But no matter what, they're going to bring a mismatch to whoever they're playing, because you're not going to have two tall guys. You're not going to be facing another team that has two tall guys that can hit shots on the perimeter all night if they really need to. So they bring an interesting dynamic regardless of who they're playing.
I know you wanted to touch on some girls' hoops very quickly, too, and honestly, it's going to have to be quick. You have about a minute.
No problem. Lancaster Catholic clinched a state a state playoff berth. Somehow they clinched a state semis. I don't know how they did it.
Amazing accomplishment.
This PIAA is getting out of control. But they are a team that I thought could really make some noise in the AAA bracket. They ended up losing to Greencastle, whom Lancaster Catholic defeated last year in the district playoffs. So I think that's a team that's going to be flying under the radar a little bit. They have really good. They're a team that notoriously presses. Lamar Kaufman, who was there forever, retired last year. Charlie Detz takes over this year. They still press though. They press the heck out of teams. They make them turn the ball over. So I just want to touch on that real quick. I think they could potentially make some noise once they get into states.
Thank you, John.
No problem.
Folks, we are taking the hard news break now. We are coming back after the 5 o'clock break to talk more high school hoops. Come back quick. We'll see you.
This is a Radio PA news update. A man wanted in a Pennsylvania kidnapping has been apprehended in the state of Wyoming. Brad Chrisman reports.
State police in Pennsylvania say authorities in Casper, Wyoming took 43-year-old Marshall Glenn McGinty into custody in a Walmart parking lot on Wednesday. McGinty had been suspected in a kidnapping and robbery February 16th in Berks County. Troopers say McGinty forced the victim to withdraw $60 in cash from an ATM, and he also took the victim's car. Among the other items stolen, an AK-47 rifle from a home where the victim was house sitting. At the time he was apprehended in Wyoming, police say McGinty was still driving the vehicle he stole during his alleged crime spree in Pennsylvania. I'm Brad Chrisman.
An elementary school in Allentown will be closed for 8 weeks after an electrical fire Tuesday left the building with significant smoke, water, and other damage. There were no injuries, and the fire happened before the class day had begun for students. A home in northwestern Pennsylvania exploded into flames this morning, but Rachel McDevitt reports 3 people were able to make it out safely.
McKean Hose Company Chief Jim Pyle says the house in McKean Township was engulfed in flames when crews arrived just before 6 o'clock this morning. Pyle says one family member was in the shower and 2 others were sleeping when the explosion rocked the 3-story home, but they did manage to get out before the following fire brought the house to the ground. Crews battled cold temperatures and had to run thousands of feet of hose to carry water to the home that sits off a rural road down a long driveway. A state police fire marshal was called in to investigate the cause. I'm Rachel McDevitt.
State House members continue to debate a liquor privatization bill with a final passage vote expected later today. And Governor Tom Wolf and GOP leaders in the Senate say they've reached a deal on how to handle more than 24 nominees to boards and commissions by Governor Tom Corbett as he was leaving office. The Senate confirmed 12 nominees with 4 others set to follow later. 12 of Corbett's selections for previous posts will be replaced by Wolf nominees. I'm David Payne, and you're up to date from Radio PA.
Hey, there he is. How's it going? I'm having a stroke. Are you going to shake my hand or what? I'm having a stroke. Wow, you're not even moving your arm. I'm having a stroke. Are you okay? I'm having a stroke. Your face looks weird too. I'm having a stroke. Are you having a seizure or something? I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org.
First in York, first in sports. Your only local sports station. The new Sports Radio 1350, WOYK, York, Pennsylvania.
Southern weather, tagging Jihadi John, net neutrality. I'm Evan Haining. The South has been hit hard by snow, ice, and freezing rain, perhaps 200,000 power outages in North Carolina and other states. And meteorologist Chad Myers warns, be careful on the roads.
It's going to be a slow drive up and down 995, a slow 64, 68. All the interstates through the Northeast are going to be slow.
And turn on your headlights. Well, multiple news outlets are identifying Jihadi John as Mohammed Emwazi, reportedly an ISIS executioner who appears in a number of beheading videos. But White House spokesman Josh Earnest will only say
whether or not the person that's named in those news reports is the person in question is something that I can neither confirm nor deny.
The FCC has voted yes on net neutrality. The decision classifies broadband internet as a common carrier to be regulated like your electricity, but this will be challenged in court. The Dow is 8 points down right now. S&P is off 3. I'm Evan Haining.
If you have Medicare Part D, Walgreens can put you at the corner of switching your prescriptions and saving some money. That's because Walgreens makes it easy to switch and save with copays as low as $0 on select Medicare Part D plans. Just bring us your prescriptions and we'll do the rest. Switch to save even more today. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
Applies to Tier 1 generics for select plans.
How strong is Allegra D?
It's my congestions out of my way strong. Even in the park, playing with my dogs. Go fetch, Bosley.
Allegra D, a fast, non-drowsy antihistamine plus a powerful decongestant that starts relieving your toughest allergy symptoms in under 1 hour.
Allegra D is breathing free for 24 hours strong, even in the convertible.
Allegra D, strong relief for your allergy symptoms, guaranteed or your money back. Visit Allegra.com. Use only as directed.
Hi, I'm Central York boys basketball coach Kevin Sheeler. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, first in York, first in sports.
Hey folks, welcome back to Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. Teddy Feinberg, Brandon Stoneberg, John Buffone. We're bringing you all the high school sports action leading up to tonight's district championship game between York Catholic girls and Camp Hill. That's Class 2A girls basketball. Not necessarily a local, well, definitely not a local story. This story happened in Tennessee. It's not anywhere near here, but I do think it has some implications locally. Apparently, 2 Tennessee high school basketball teams, this was reported by the Daily News Journal of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The Associated Press picked it up, and it was on GameTimePA.com. Riverdale, and I guess it's Smyra, S-M-Y-R-A. They essentially threw a state playoff game. I don't want to butcher this.
They 76ers did is what they did.
They pretty much tanked it. They tried to lose the game in essence because the winner actually ended up facing the tournament's highest seed, or a very high seed, a very tough opponent for either team. And you know, the Tennessee, I don't want to completely butcher this, but essentially both teams were yanked from postseason play. Each program or school was fined $1,500. They're both on probation for a year. This was blatant. Apparently, they were trying to turn the ball over. They were trying to score on the other bucket.
They were purposely getting backcourt violations. They were missing free throws on purpose.
It's unbelievable. Well, I know I have an opinion.
How scared of an opponent do you have to be to willfully tell your kids to lose like that?
To put a local spin on it, that's like saying in a District 3 tournament, we're gonna completely blow this semifinal game so we get a better spot in the PIAAs because we like our matchup there. It's sickening. I've coached at the high school level. I have coached at the youth level, and whenever you're coaching at those levels, your job is as much to teach kids lessons out off the court as it is
I
on the court.
100% agree with
You
that.
gotta build character.
You are a character, but especially in today's society where necessarily a lot of families are a little different than they used to be 30, 40 years ago. There's a lot more on the coach's responsibility now to teach these kind of things. And to say, well, you know what, we're probably going to get smoked next game, so let's lose this one. And it kills me because then what are you telling them? Well, if something looks like it's insurmountable, don't try it. Try to find a way to avoid it.
I 100% agree. This was my thought process as well. What are you teaching the players on your team, first of all? And then again, you're essentially saying we're not good enough to advance anyway.
I wish there was like a fly on the wall for the practice before that. Like when the coaching staff said, hey, our game plan is to lose on purpose, and then, okay, let's go tell the kids we're going to lose on purpose. Let's practice on how to lose on purpose. Like, how did that go over?
And I hate the fact that the teams got tossed because when you're a high school team, you're doing what the coach tells you.
Yeah.
And if the coach tells you we're going to tank this game, and then that happens, and then you get your team gets tossed, you feel bad for the kids because they were doing what they were told. They're high school kids, and their coach told them we're going to lose the game. The coach should be gone. The kids should be able to keep playing. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is now you're thinking about yourself, and I'm going way down the road. What do you say? Tell a kid, well, you could apply for that job, but you're probably not going to get it. So try to find something else. You try something that's going to be too hard for you to do.
But your overall premise is correct. It's about what are you teaching the kids?
And you're teaching them that if something seems too hard, don't do it. And you tell that to people who have come up with some of the world's greatest ideas. Tell Steve Jobs that he can't possibly create a computer for every house in the world. Tell some of these people that have completely changed things, who were told, or who had ideas that looked like they could never ever, materialize, that it's going to happen. So tell these girls, no, there's no way you're going to win this game. As a coach, you're telling them we're so overmatched and they're so much better than us that we're going to lose a game so we can avoid them.
Yeah, what kind of shot is that to their confidence and their ego? And your own coach is telling you have no chance next week, so here, go lose this one on purpose so we don't have to play them, so we don't have to get embarrassed by this team.
It's lazy what it is because as a coach, you're supposed to be able to motivate your kids no matter what the occasion. Yeah, I would rather go out and get my butt kicked by 30 or 40 points than to tell my kids there's no way we're going to win this game.
Agree.
We're going to go out there and we're just going to try to avoid it. And talk about character building. Yeah, you want to teach them about life. Say that you're not always going to win or there's not always an easy way out of something. Tell them that there's going to be plenty of times where somebody's better than you at something. Tell them that there's going to be times where you're going to fail and this is how you react to it.
Hey, that's okay.
And how do you keep moving forward? How hard you can get hit and keep going forward is still a thing of a Rocky movie.
I will say there's and this is obvious, the system is flawed. The playoff system is flawed there, obviously. And I'm not making any excuses for what they did, but there is that point too. I don't know why the winner gets the short end of the stick, but that's neither here nor there. That's obvious, and there's major issues.
You want to hear a really stretch? Remember, I'm going to try and really stretch this one out here. What about basketball at its highest level in the NBA? Teams tanking to get a better draft pick, and the influence that these, you look up at the highest level of basketball, levels above them, and they're seeing teams tank. And their NBA teams have been, when they didn't want they wanted an 8 instead of a 7 seed to play, matchup wise. Yeah, there've been teams say, oh, maybe we lose this one. We rest our starters so we don't win this game.
I understand, but at the professional level, I can almost get it. But at this level, where you're trying to shape somebody's mind, where they are still very moldable, where they are not adults, where they're still not really making all of their own decisions, it's crazy. I was a youth basketball coach for 5th and 6th graders back in Pittsburgh. We won 2 out of 14 games, we won 2. Every game, I figured, and you know what? We only had 6 kids. So every game, I figured, man, there's probably going to lose. But at every game, it was my responsibility as a coach to try to convince these kids that they needed to show up and give it their best shot, because eventually we did win 1 game. And you want to see elation on somebody's face? They win a game where you're not supposed to. That's what makes sport. It's not supposed to be easy. The hard is what makes it good. So what you have to do is, as a coach, if you actually give a darn about your players and their psyche, is to try to motivate these kids, no matter what the opponent, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the situation, tell them that this is worth going out and giving it your best shot, regardless of who you're facing.
flawed postseason system and certainly a flawed approach on both teams.
Flawed people is what it is. Yeah. Flawed people who are too scared to actually go out and play a game. To play a game. We're talking about a game. You're afraid to play a game against. We're not talking about practice. You're afraid to go play a game against somebody.
I would love to hear a quote from some of these. I would love an interview with one of these kids though, like how they took it, how it went over with them.
What about a senior on this team?
Yeah.
Oh, well, remember our senior year where we got kicked out of playoffs because our coach made us tank?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, put that in the yearbook.
Yeah.
I think we definitely hammered home the point that they were wrong.
And the coaches should be fired.
Okay.
They're jerks.
We've hammered it home. Fouling out. Let's touch base on that. We talked about the fouling
nice segue.
We talked about the fouling out process and how, and see, this is why I don't like fouling out in high school basketball or in any level of basketball period, because it forces a coach to make a decision early. If a player picks up 2 fouls or 3 fouls, you got to get him out of the game. You're a top player. What are some alternatives?
I understand that you're also teaching these kids discipline, and you have to be disciplined enough to not commit 5 fouls in a game, which isn't the hardest thing in the world. But also, basketball is supposed to be...
But there are bad calls.
There are tons of bad calls, especially in this area, but we're not going to delve too deep into that. Basketball is also supposed to be an entertaining sport, is it not?
No question.
So how entertaining is it to watch something like a Hanover Columbia last night? How much more entertaining would that have been if we weren't shooting 20 free throws in the fourth quarter, or if Hanover had a full-strength team going into overtime, or if the second half didn't last an hour and a half?
Well, the problem is we're talking about fouling out, so we're not talking about letting the calls go. So even if you abolish the fouling out system, those fouls are probably going to still get called, and you're going to see a free throw shooting contest towards the end. I don't know. I think there needs to be some kind of uniform, and you can't do it because there's always a human element in there. It's so hard for these kids to decide, well, with this guy, I can, get a little more physical with their calling it this. And it's just like an umpire in baseball. The strike zones collapse. Would I be in favor of saying give a kid 6 fouls? Yeah, I think at some point you still got to foul out because you're going to be kids that are going to take big time advantage of this, where they're just going to go out and hack you and say, oh, well, okay, shoot your 2 free throws. I just forearm shivered you in the face. So I think there needs to be a little bit of structure there. But if you told me tomorrow that they're going to up the fouls to 6 in high school and maybe even college, I'd be fine with that because you want to see the best players play.
American Basketball Association, 1970s, Dr. J. George Gervin, Artis Gilmore, David Thompson, the list goes on. Some of the all-time great players. Connie Hawkins, I can keep going on. Red, white, and blue ball. Anyway, they invented the three-point line. The NBA eventually adapted it. They invented the dunk contest. The NBA adapted it. One of the rules I always wanted to see the NBA adapt to was the ABA, you couldn't foul out. You picked up your 6th foul. Every foul that player picked up after his 6th foul, 2 free throws, and the ball. So in other words, it forced a certain strategy to fit. Instead of just saying, I have to take my guy out, it forced you to say, okay, is the risk worth the reward? And I think you can get that in all walks of basketball. I don't like it in any walk of basketball, the whole foul. The foul, it constrains the team.
One thing that the PIAA does, and maybe they do in some other states, is last night with like a Hanover Columbia situation, that's a York Adams team going against an LL team, so they get a mid-pen crew to come in and referee the game. It's supposed to eliminate bias, which I'm sure it does.
I'm in favor of that.
I do like that. The only thing is, like John said, maybe the mid-pen referees have a little different style than the York Adams referees do, or maybe the York Adams referees let something go that the LL referees don't let go normally. And these referees have also never seen these players, so they don't know. 100%. They haven't seen these teams, they haven't seen these players, they haven't seen these coaches. So maybe that also contributes to this situation.
It's a catch-22 in that aspect, though, because as soon as you bring a referee staff, let's say a York Adams crew did the Columbia game against Hanover. Then you're just throwing gasoline on a fire if somehow there's a call made down the stretch, and all you're going to say is, well, that was a York Adams crew there, of course. And so I get where you have to keep it unbiased. It's just, and I'm not saying I have a solution, so I guess I'm just that grumpy old person who's saying kids these days. But I like the idea of saying you can stay and play, but if you commit another foul, they also get the ball back.
The ABA was ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm an ABA nut.
Well, they were smart enough to sign a television deal, which they're still getting paid.
St. Louis.
They're still getting paid out for that.
Well, we drew some hard conclusions. The Tennessee coaches need to go.
Yeah, and, we're clearly not a fan of the Tennessee coaches.
I hope they're listening.
And
maybe Bruce Pearl takes our spot.
And
I would like that.
And there needs to be some adjustment on the fouling out process. Whether these things happen really probably won't happen.
No.
Folks, we'll be back in a matter of minutes. You're listening to Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
The new Wyndham Garden York, formerly the Holiday Inn by the West Manchester Mall, has been fully renovated and remodeled. With 177 upgraded guest rooms, over 16,000 square feet of meeting space, 2 large ballrooms, indoor and outdoor pools, a much larger fitness center, a new business center, and free Wi-Fi throughout. The new Fender's Grill and Pub features American cuisine in a casual atmosphere using local meats, produce, wine, and craft beers. The new Wyndham Garden, 2000 Louts Road in York. Stop in or call us at 846-9500.
Get ready for winter now and save big on your heating oil or propane costs. Call today to schedule your first fill, and don't forget to ask our energy advisors about the right money-saving plan or budget to fit your lifestyle. Lock in your rate and protect your price all winter. Our price-protected customers save an average of $325 per year. Visit ShipleyEnergy.com or call 855-4SHIPLEY to schedule your next heating oil or propane delivery. Shipley Energy, energy for life.
Looking for something cool to do this weekend? Looking for a different kind of family fun? Come to the coolest place in town, York Ice Arena. Get on the ice with your friends for Rock and Skate. The last Friday of each month. Every Wednesday is family night with free skate rentals for the whole family. And remember, the coolest place in town is also available for the coolest birthday party in town. For party package prices and public skating times, check out YorkSkate.com. Want to learn to skate? Want to suit up and learn how to play some hockey? Come to the coolest place in town, York Ice Arena. Learn to skate programs are now available for all ages, for every skating ability. Class levels range from beginner to freestyle, where you'll learn basic jumps, spins, and footwork, and skating rental is included. Or get on the ice for York Ice Arena hockey programs. Taught by Ice Arena coaches, boys and girls can learn proper techniques for the game. Rental equipment is available. Group skating lessons and beginner hockey programs are forming now. Plus, York City residents get a 50% discount. Register today. Go to YorkSkate.com.
Hi, I'm West York girls basketball coach Darryl Wilderson. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. First in York, first in sports.
Welcome back to Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. I'm Brandon Stoneberg, joined by Johnny Radio, John Buffone, Teddy Feinberg. Johnny Radio. We're doing our Uncle Steve segment without Uncle Steve. So basically, this is just the crazy cousins talking while Uncle's taking a nap. I'm gonna do this. John, you've been here for this before. It's kind of opinionated questions. Sometimes we throw some quiz stuff in there, but I'm gonna leave that out. Just more opinionated questions because we seem to be doing well with that, if you haven't noticed during the Tennessee talk. First thing, I wanted to get your guys' opinion on things you do like and things you don't like about student section antics. For instance, there's certain chants that drive me crazy when a student section does it. There's also things I've seen student sections do that I think's hilarious and I love. Anything specifically that stands out, favorites and dislikes, student sections, go.
I would agree that there are some chants that I'm really over, and it's probably because I'm at a game every day, and so, I can only hear "I believe that we will win" so many times before I'm just like, I'm out of here. I'm so done.
What I like about that one is I was at a game last week and both student sections did it at the same time. I was like, one of you guys is guaranteed to be wrong.
One of you is wrong, and we will soon find out.
I believe that one of you is wrong.
I believe one of you is wrong. That's the chant I'm going to make. But I do love some of the creativity out of some of these student sections, the themes that they have sometimes. I think Manheim Central had Camo Night. They'll at the Hershey Center, the Giant Center a couple days ago, and Manheim Central also has the Manheim Shuffle that they do. It's very I can't even do it. I don't even really know the words to it.
I thought they were original. I saw that, and I saw two more teams the next week do the same thing called their Shuffle. So I don't know.
So I'm not sure who actually has the original one on it. But I do like some of the creativity that they do. Some of the student sections dress up as Sports Center anchors throughout the year. I thought that was original until I saw it the week after that. Yeah. And then,
right, the originality stops when it happens 4 consecutive weeks.
Yeah,
that first week it was great.
Just like sports student sections of the copycat league. That's right. Whatever's hot at that time.
From a personal standpoint, I love enthusiasm from student sections. I love great atmospheres. I wouldn't necessarily say I have a huge problem with anything. Obviously, sometimes sometimes they can get very personal.
I was just thinking of that. I'm like some of the things that they say towards the end of the game, especially coming from the losing student section.
Yes.
I will say my least favorite chant of all time from coming from a student section is "Let's play football" in case that team beat them in football season. It's like because this happened.
But we're not playing.
Yeah, but we're not playing. But this happened at Lancaster Mennonite, Lancaster Catholic and Lampeter Strasburg. Lampeter Strasburg won the section in football this year. Lancaster Catholic was beating them in basketball. This was a girls' game, so they're bringing up football. So as the greatest response is Lampeter Strasburg saying, "Let's play football," and so Lancaster Catholic, who has a pretty good bowling team, said, "Let's play bowling." That's classic. So I thought that was a great response. But I can't stand. It's like, well, you're really killing us in this sport, but let's play this one. Let's forget that this will never happen. I don't like that's sour grapes.
I think as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's kept, relatively clean
PG.
and not personal. Yeah, you know what?
Don't take personal shots at somebody.
I could do without that.
Yeah, I think Brandon and I were talking about this last night. The Columbia kid, somebody from Hanover shot an air ball. I think the first minute of the game, and every time, like they were hounding it. It was until the game was over.
But I'm okay with
air ball. I thought it was funny.
He started 1 for 10, but he eventually shot 10 more shots after the air ball, and still every time he touched the ball, they were chanting air ball.
Until the end of the game, they were chanting air ball. And
he never lived that air ball down.
Kudos for them for remember the name or the number on that kid that actually shot the air ball.
And, credit him for keep firing away.
He had the green light. One of the things I hate the "you can't do that" chant after a foul's call, especially on a reach in or something. Or an intentional foul. Like, I know I can't do it. I did it intentionally.
Yeah, I try to do it. That's why I know I can't do it.
That was the point.
Yeah. Some things I like during pre-game introductions when student section will either wave a newspaper in front of their face or turn the other way when the kids get introduced. I do love that.
That's a Maryland thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Maryland does that. I like, what was the other thing I saw this year that I really like? Oh, I was at a Delone Hanover big rivalry down there. And a classic public-private school battle. The private school starts chanting out SATs for SAT scores because it's a stereotype they're smarter.
Yeah.
One of the leaders of the Hanover student section, whips out 2 acceptance letters to some pretty prominent schools. Said, "I got your SATs right here." Screams across the way. It was classic. The Hanover crowd loved it. It was a pretty cool moment, and she was actually right. I don't know why she had 2 acceptance letters in her pocket, but she had them both with her.
Well, if they're prominent schools, you want to show that to people no matter where you're at.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was one I actually enjoyed. Good conversation there. John, I asked Steve this last week, but I wanted to get your opinion on it. Getting to coach a kid or a coach who's not really talkative or kind of shy to talk during a post-game interview, how do you kind of coax him into it? If he's kind of giving you one-word answers or kind of a quiet kid, how do you coax him out of that show?
This happens a lot. And the idea is, and you see this sometimes where some people are too direct. You see the reporters, kind of forget what it's like to be a kid, and
let alone a kid with a
skills.
Yeah, exactly. So I try, and this is just maybe I feel more comfortable doing this because I coached for a couple years and I know how to try to relate to kids. But you got to talk to them like you're just having a conversation. You can't put a recorder in front of them and say, "Talk about this, talk about that." Now talk about this. I try to shoot the breeze with them for a while, and I try to talk to them with the game. Maybe the quarter's not even on. You have to engage the kids. You have to don't treat them like a piece of meat that you got to be able to be engaging, talk to them, and then they'll loosen up. And if you're a shy kid, a lot of kids will say, "Oh, I'm shy until you get to know me." Well, get to know them then.
Yeah.
so actually get to know them on a personal level, and just don't say, "Do this."
Yeah. Sometimes I'll open up with if someone shot an air ball, "Hey man, what's up with that air ball you had? Or what's up with those shoes you're wearing?" Something like that.
You can break the ice with something like that.
No, I agree. I think I completely agree. Getting them, not necessarily getting on that level with them, but also I think a good line of questioning as it pertains to the game, and you show them you have a certain level of expertise. It's finding a common ground.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key. And certainly there's some people, and honestly, it doesn't matter. I think it's like this in college and pro sports too. They're just not that good at it.
Well, that's the thing. If you're a person that doesn't like to be, there's some great athletes who just don't like to be in. They don't like to be in front of crowds of people or even talk.
And there's some people that are incredible quotes.
Well, that goes to maybe we're disconnected from that because we're used to being in front of people so often. But there are plenty of people who are deathly afraid of public speaking or deathly afraid of talking in front of groups of people, especially people who might have a microphone in front of them or might have a recorder in front of them. So you got to understand that some of these kids are very tentative to do that kind of thing. So sometimes you're going to get something out of them, sometimes you're not. You just gotta try to get on their level and keep talking.
Next question I have for you guys. This answer can come from the York Adams area. We've all covered sports in other areas as well. Most interesting person that you've interviewed, just off the top of your head, if you could think of anyone prominent, anyone interesting, any big interviews.
There are some really good characters in Lancaster. I can tell you that right now. I would say some of the best. And this is not any in particular. Some of the best interviews are wrestlers because it's such an individualized sport, and you got to try to stand out, or you try to win with your skills. Those guys sometimes they'll give you a good interview. A lot of football players, I've gone up, especially whenever you don't give them like that 5-minute cool down period, and you're talking to them right after the game. I've had a couple football players come up and just chest bump me. maybe it looks like I'm not a reporter or something like that. They come up and they're like boom. I'm like, all right, well, what about that third quarter? As I'm trying to repair my broken ribs, but some of these kids, like, they're so jacked up after a win, or they're so amped up after something, that they'll come up and they'll talk to you like you're a good friend, and they'll come up, they'll shoulder bump you, they'll slap you 5. It's really interesting, especially whenever in high school when there's so much emotion put into something, because you're literally playing for the love of the game. They'll just come up and they're just so excited just to talk to anybody, let alone a reporter.
There are 2 guys for me that really stand out, actually, and nobody is going to know who they are. One is a gentleman by the name of Don Kloppenberg, and another is by the name of Greg Barry. Coach Kloppenberg, long-standing junior college football coach in California, won a handful of national titles in California as a junior college coach. Real expert along the offensive line. He played at Fresno State as the starting center and middle linebacker in the 1950s. And Greg Barry, a former assistant coach at New Mexico State University, an athlete at Bradley University. The point that I'm trying to make is I felt like every time, first of all, they knew more about football and basketball, respectively, than anybody I have ever met in my entire life, and I felt like every time I talked to them, I learned something new. I have a ton of love for both of those guys. They taught me how to be a better reporter by just the stuff they taught. I learned so much about football and basketball, and I still talk to them to this day. They're friends for life, and they're brilliant.
Building relationships through your career. Last one-word answer, because I think we're down to about 30 seconds. Dream interview. I say tomorrow you get to interview anyone in the world that you want to. Who do you do?
Does that include all sports or in anything?
Anything.
Who?
This is really hard.
For 30 seconds? Oh, man. Or no, I only have the 30 seconds to answer this.
We can limit it to sports if it makes it a little bit easier for you.
It doesn't.
Like mine being a Baltimore...
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive. Whew. I'm a Baltimore kid. I go Ray Lewis or Cal Ripken Jr. first.
I'm going Barry Sanders on this one.
Ooh.
I'm doing Sylvester Stallone.
Okay.
Al Capone.
Love Slice. Yuck. Great call.
All right. On that note, you're listening to Game Day of GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WYK. We'll be back in a minute.
At Northwestern Mutual, we take a disciplined and balanced approach to financial planning. Together, we'll help build your financial future on time-tested principles, not market trends, so you can take advantage of life's opportunities. To learn more, contact me, Dan McGarry, at my office on a square in York. Look for the blue awnings. Who's helping you build your financial future? The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
The Irish are going for their record 10th straight District 3 Girls AA title in our high school basketball Game of the Week, brought to you by WellSpan Sports Medicine. The York Catholic girls will face Camp Hill Thursday at 6 p.m. with the District 3 Girls AA Championship on the line from the Giants Center in Hershey. Ron Ruman and Andy Bria will be on the call, so join us for our high school basketball Game of the Week, brought to you by WellSpan Sports Medicine, Thursday at 6, York Catholic versus Camp Hill, here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Under Center with McNabb and Malone. What's next for Ray McDonald, who was not only arrested for domestic abuse on his pregnant wife or fiance, but played this past Sunday?
The whole thing comes down to is the NFL and Roger Goodell. You know, when you make the decision of suspending Ray Rice for 2 games, then you come back out to clean things up and say, hey, we're going to be stricter. We're going to come out and suspend guys 6 games, and then it's a 1-year ban. Well, why didn't you just do it in the first place?
Under Center, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on NBC Sports Radio.
Believe it or not, spring is coming, and we've got the bases covered like Etch with dirt during a tantrum. Join Darryl Henry and Atlantic League Manager of the Year, Mark Mason, for Revs Hot Stove Weekly, every Friday at 4. Breaking news each week with the latest player signings exclusively here first. Plus, fan interaction online, interviews with players, and we'll highlight really good calls from umpires. Maybe we should have stopped with interviews with players. Rev's Hot Stove Weekly, Fridays at 4 on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Hi, I'm Dover boys basketball coach Brian Schmoyer. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, first in York, first in sports.
Welcome back, folks. Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. On the home stretch here, 7 segment. We have 8 total. We're getting off the air a little bit early today because I know WOYK wants to air the York Catholic Camp Hill Class 2A District 3 Girls Championship game. So we're going to be getting off the air at about 5:55, give or take. But thanks for tuning in. Teddy Feinberg, Brandon Stoberg, John Buffone. I feel like it's been a very productive show thus far. We've been running the floor well.
A lot of good topics.
I feel like we're all better people for being here.
We've been creating defense with it. We've been creating offense with our defense.
That's right.
And I'm happy with that.
We've interviewed Al Capone and we've fired a few Tennessee coaches.
Absolutely. That was a fiery segment.
I'm still a little fired up from that. So
that was a fiery segment, and we think that we came up with a solution for the fouling out dilemma. So hopefully all commissioners and all walks of sports are listening to segment 5 of Game Day with GameTimePA today. We usually reserve segment 7 for listener interaction, our Facebook, our social media accounts, anything that created a buzz this past week. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the district wrestling tournament that just went down in Hershey. And I know just from a local standpoint, YAIA athletes, I gave Lucas Barshinger, our Eastern York athlete, I gave him my game ball, but he won a district title at 195. He's had an unbelievable year. He's going to the state tournament, obviously, in wrestling. But he also was a fantastic running back for Eastern. He led them to the state playoffs, so just give him a shout out. Seth Janney, Southwestern Wrestling. He fell short last year of the PIAA tournament. That did not happen this year. He won the 220-pound title in the District 3 Class AAA tournament. Nate Newberry of Biglerville, he finished 4th last year. He finished 1st this year, and of course there were 4 Bermudian Springs wrestlers who really took the bull by the horns, all winning their respective weight classes in district. That was Britton Shelton at 170, Colton Dahl at $182, Sam McCullum won at 220, and Brady Linebaugh at 285. So those are some guys, and I know that District Wrestling got a lot of traction on our Facebook page. There was a lot of support for the YAIA wrestlers. Those were just a handful of guys that really stood out to me, but that had fantastic performances. John, I don't know if there was anyone on your end, obviously, that really stood out that you want to give a shout out to.
Oh, you got to spotlight Bo Spiller from Solanco. He's
a beast.
Yeah, he finished 4th in the state last year at 220. He was only wrestling at 220 because Solanco had Thomas Haynes last year, who was a 4-time state champion. So he's currently wrestling at Ohio State. Spiller takes over as the new heavyweight at Solanco. Wins districts. Won the league championship last year. Won it again this year. He's rolling through. He's undefeated. He hasn't tasted defeat yet, and I think that he has a great chance of winning states again this year. To add to it, he's just a phenomenal kid.
Great football player.
Yeah. He almost quit wrestling to focus on football, and then he's recently committed to wrestle at Bloomsburg. But this is a kid that thought about not wrestling because he wanted to stay big for football and he wanted to keep lifting for football. Decided that he was going to go back to wrestling, and I think
that's cool.
Yeah, he definitely made the right decision.
What position does he play in football?
He was a defensive lineman, and he wanted to keep lifting, get bigger. He wanted stronger. He loved football, and then he decided, his coaches and his friends talked him into come back to wrestling. It'll help with your footwork.
It complements your sport,
and it'll help you. And all of a sudden, he started being more successful in wrestling, and things snowballed, and he just gained a lot of confidence on the mat. And now he's one of the best wrestlers in Pennsylvania, as far as I'm concerned.
Brandon, you covered wrestling. I remember I believe it was your first wrestling meet of your career. You came into the radio show. It was a Thursday, and you're like, Ted, I got wrestling. Like, I've never done it.
I can count the wrestling events I've covered in my life on one hand still.
And you've covered it now, though. Did you gain a sense of appreciation for the sport, and if so, how? Because it's an incredible sport. Honestly, it's one sport. I played hoops. I played baseball. wrestling, I would have gotten ran out of the building. First of all, I could never make weight. I would always be.
That alone is just to be able to just stay underweight or keep. I'm like, I gotta lose like 5.
It's like I need that turkey BLT.
It's like I gotta lose 5 pounds in like 3 hours. I'm like,
I gained a lot of respect for, like you said, like the kids, like making that weight, staying in that great physical shape, and battling every night like that for whether it be 6 minutes or whatever, against someone who's also your size. Just the one-on-one aspect of it.
I agree.
Completely equal.
I think it's just an awesome in that aspect.
Mano y mano.
Yeah, the mano a mano. You're not going to see that in many other sports. If you slip up in a one-on-one matchup in football or basketball,
you'll see it in wrestling.
Guys can pick you up.
Guys pick you up.
Yeah. Golf.
Yeah.
I gained a lot of respect for the following. I mean, those were some of the most hyped up atmospheres I've been in all season.
Great atmosphere.
Huge atmosphere, yeah.
Wrestling fans are rabid fans.
Yeah.
It is, strong, tough, cold following.
Yeah.
I can see how in some of the matchups, I can see how some wrestling critics, I guess, would be like, that's a boring sport to watch just because of the scoring's kind of hard to keep up with. I mean, at first, it's a lot of, there's moments when there's a lot of standing and looking at each other and kind of grappling with each other, and the scoring's kind of hard to keep up with, so I can see their aspects. But if you get into it, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. It's a pretty cool sport to see.
If you don't understand the scoring, I can see how it would be.
Isn't every sport like that, though? I mean, I hear people like baseball. Okay.
Yeah,
I get a rush out of a sack fly to right where the runner advances from second to third. Some people watch that. They're like,
you're seeing
why
more,
are you up clapping?
You're seeing more and more people get on that group, though, finding baseball boring.
No, I mean, it's there. And I think even soccer, I mean, I make fun of some of our, I hate to say I make fun of some of our clerks, but I do, because I mean, they love soccer, and Annie Meese, Nate Staley.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of, we jostle back and forth. I don't understand the game, and if I did, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I get really into the World Cup.
The World Cup's exciting. I don't understand sometimes when people watch, like, get into the European soccer
when
league.
When they wake up at like 2 in the morning and watch
the Arsenal Man City game. I was like, you don't watch the Canadian Football League. Why are you watching the European Soccer League? I
love the CFL, by the way.
Yeah, anyway, to get back,
Blue Bombers.
Yeah, anyway, to get back to where we're going, I get sorry, Brandon. I get the appreciation. I definitely gain some respect for especially the wrestlers themselves and their community. A very tight knit group. I wrote a story on a referee who had refereed for 50 years in the community, and it was one of the most shared stories I've ever written, and it blew up.
Man.
Yeah, and when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know if I want to write a story on the referee because they're not that well known, and all of a sudden the whole community came out. We know him. We know him. So definitely a tight knit community.
No question. I think the personalities and I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but a very low maintenance group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like wrestlers are really even they're not looking for the spotlight. No, they're doing it because they're doing it.
About the least snooty people you'll ever meet.
No question.
Which makes the interviews great. When you interview a wrestling coach, he's so excited to talk to you. He's so excited to give you so much information.
Mm-hmm. And they know a lot of times you're not exactly plugged in. You don't know exactly what happened. So they're excited to explain it to you. They're not saying, they don't look at you like, well, you don't know. They're really excited to explain what happened. Just from the majority of coaches I've interviewed.
They're very, very excited to inform you, and they're very excited to get exposure to their sport and inform others, I think.
Right.
And if that means them talking to you and giving you some, because I came in there with some very generic, bland, ballpark question like, hey, when did you pick up momentum? Where you could ask that at any dinner table. Yeah. And he can they kind of lead you into more technical stuff and more detail and kind of teach you a little bit more.
So what happened out there, Coach?
That's the reporter's way of saying please help.
Yeah, please keep talking.
Did you see a turning point throughout any of this?
When did you pick up momentum?
Were you here?
Yeah.
That's classic. No, I definitely respect the blue collar mentality, and again, good wrestling tradition, definitely in your neck of the woods in Hanover, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely a successful year. I didn't even mention everyone; those were the stars that stood out. But congrats to everyone who had a good district run, and to seeing their craft advance to regionals or the state tournament, wherever you may be going. Folks, we are coming back with our final segment. It's going to be abbreviated, but please come back and check us out, as always, Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Sports Radio 1350 WOYK honors the Shipley Energy Student Athlete of the Week.
This week's Shipley Energy Boys Student Athlete of the Week is Nate Newberry of Biglerville Wrestling. After taking 4th in last year's District 3 Class AA tournament, Newberry won the 145-pound title this past weekend. And this week's Shipley Energy Girls Student Athlete of the Week is Claudia Mingora of York Suburban Basketball. She scored a game-high 21 points, including 8 points in the fourth quarter, all from the free throw line. and a 45-37 District 3 tournament win over Fleetwood. For Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, I'm Ray Jensen.
Get your home ready for fall and winter and sign up for the Shipley Energy Protection Plan. For more information, visit ShipleyEnergy.com.
Want to learn to skate? Want to suit up and learn how to play some hockey? Come to the coolest place in town, York Ice Arena. Learn to skate programs are now available for all ages. For every skating ability, kids of all ages will learn how to feel comfortable on ice, how to stand, and perhaps most importantly, how to fall properly. Class levels range from beginner to freestyle, where you'll learn basic jumps, spins, and footwork. Classes are taught by York Ice Arena skating instructors from White Rose Figure Skating Club. No skates? No problem. Skate rental is included in your registration. Or get on the ice for our York Ice Arena hockey programs. York Ice Arena coaches will focus on teaching proper techniques needed for anyone interested in playing hockey. Rental equipment is available for beginning players, both boys and girls. So get on the ice. Learn to skate. Learn to play. Sign up now. Group skating lessons and beginners hockey programs are forming now. Plus, York City residents get a 50% discount. Register today. Go to YorkSkate.com and click on Program Info. York Ice Arena, the coolest place in town.
Hi, I'm Red Lion Boys basketball coach Steve Schmale. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. First in York, first in sports.
Final segment. Went by quick. John Buffone, Teddy Feinberg, Brandon Stoneberg. I'm Teddy Feinberg. John Buffone's to my left. Brandon Stoneberg's also beside me.
Johnny Radio.
Johnny Radio.
There's Johnny Football, then there's Johnny Radio.
Running that no-huddle offense. Game day with GameTimePA, Sports Radio 1350. People are used to hearing Mr. Navaroli hosting the program, but I honestly say I think the three-man weave worked out pretty good tonight.
Some good team chemistry. I thought it went by really fast, and we had some good conversation.
There's good momentum.
We're like a Columbia right now. You know, it was a hot team. Not the most heavily favored team.
No one gave us a chance.
Yeah.
At what point was the turning point?
I was hitting on a very generic question. I felt like momentum.
Were you satisfied with the effort level from your team tonight?
I was. What did you guys learn today? I have a good one.
Go ahead, you go first then.
Yeah.
I learned that John Buffone's uncle played 14 years as an outside linebacker for the Chicago Bears. That was astounding news. He knows Brian Urlacher. He knows Dick, but he played with Dick Butkus.
Yeah, him and Butkus are still pretty good friends. He was good friends with Gale Sayers, and he was there throughout the Walter Payton stuff and things like that. He was a defensive captain from 1972 to 1975.
We're gonna bring him in for an interview.
Oh, he was on whenever I had a radio show in Pittsburgh. He was on every week to break down NFL stuff. So he still does stuff. He still does the Chicago Bears postgame show out in 670 AM. The Score.
Doug Buffone. And now I know when you said, because my original thing that you learned. See, what you learn, actually, I'm trying to kind of take notes during the show so I can come up with good ones, because sometimes people are like, what'd you learn? And I'm like, I'm hungry. Navaroli's like, that's the lamest thing you could have possibly.
That's been yours for the last 3 weeks. I really want Taco Bell right now. I really want pizza right now.
I didn't learn anything there. I'm either starving or I'm a little hungry. But originally my thing, as you mentioned earlier, you couldn't get on the football field because, there were some injuries during your high school career, and that was a shame due to your history, and I didn't understand what that means. But then when we started talking about Doug Buffone,
because my uncle played at Louisville and then Chicago Bears. My father's cousin played baseball at Louisville. My cousin Timmy played in the Arena Football League, and the other one, another one of my dad's cousins played minor league baseball. So we have a kind of a history of having pretty good sports in our genetics.
There's a long lineage.
So he could have been Johnny Football, but he's still Johnny Radio.
Yeah.
I mean, instead he is competing in horse against his...
Walsh and Manheim Central.
And instead of getting smoked by 16-year-old kids in very simple basketball
Hey, you know what? As long as you're giving it all you got. Guys, what did you learn?
I learned that teams tank even at the high school level, and it's pretty atrocious. Atrocious.
That's what
I meant to say. I learned what a Donnie Brooks was.
Yes.
Kind of.
I learned who Donnie Brooks was.
Guys, there's no S at the end. It's singular.
What was the other one? Kerfluffle.
You guys have never heard of that?
I thought you said Cluffle Fluff or something like that.
Well, you know what? You learn something new every day, and kerfluffle.
All right, well, that's what I learned. I learned 2 new words.
Great word. Kerfluffle's a great word. Next time you get in an argument with someone and someone asks you what I was, simple kerfluff. No big deal. Brush it off.
I want Donnie Brooks on him.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. But I learned that I am never moving to Tennessee because I plan on having a family someday, and I want them to play basketball, and I don't want them anywhere near that dumpster fire down there they got as far as the system as in the coaching.
I think he just referred to a state as a dumpster fire.
You know what I want to say right now? I'm actually going to defend Tennessee right now. I don't want to paint it with a broad brush. That incident, honestly, I'm going to say right now was
isolated.
Terrible.
I'm sure it was isolated. It just rubs me the wrong way in such a horrid way because I cannot stand that because you're supposed to be responsible for crafting minds and all you're telling them is don't try.
Yeah.
Trying's hard. Don't do it.
I do want to, and I don't, that incident, it could have happened anywhere, and it's just, we said everything you said is correct. John, I meant to bring it up last segment, but I guess I'll bring it up now because some people might be scratching their head about the horse comment anyway. So, you've actually had a very cool social media
little segment.
A social media segment. It's been a regular segment on your social media platform, Twitter, Facebook. Why don't you explain to the listeners out there, and we have a couple minutes here, why don't you explain to them your whole, what you've been doing?
Well, I wanted to be able to spotlight how talented some of these kids are because they put so much time and effort.
This is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, they put so much time and energy into their craft. They're playing sports all year long, and they're actually student athletes because they still have to go to school. Unlike some of the, at the college level, sometimes they don't. Right. So they actually do have to go to school. They have to get good grades and things like that. So I started a segment called Ballers vs. Bloggers, in which a regular guy, myself, will take on some of these athletes in their respective sports. And the first segment was against Matt Walsh of Mannheim Central. He is a very prominent basketball player in the LO, and I decided I wanted to show off his skills by letting him play me in a game of horse.
I wanted to show off your skills by allowing you to destroy me.
Yeah, it was HORSE to nothing. He started off with a three-pointer and then hit another fadeaway, and then he dunked it, which... This is here's something that you guys will learn today. John Buffon could dunk a basketball in 9th grade.
Wow.
And then his knees turned to junk.
But you didn't have much of a chance to win, but you still went out there and competed. That's an interesting.
I went out there and competed, knowing I didn't have a chance, Teddy. I went out there and I laid it on the line because that was the right thing to do.
Yes, you did.
And I proved myself in no way whatsoever.
It all comes back to
Tennessee. I hope they're watching. Anyway, he beat me on the final shot after the dunk was a half-court jumper, which he made look like really, really routine, whereas I looked like I was a newborn calf trying to play basketball. So he destroyed me. There's going to be more segments going on. I'm hoping I'm not going to give away all the goods, but let's just say there could be, after the winter season is over, a rather prominent athlete in the LL in winter sports could be part of the next segment that'll be out hopefully within the next month or two, and then it's wide open. Maybe in the spring I'll get struck out by a softball pitcher. And basically what this comes down to is me putting my pride aside and just letting these kids show off because a lot of the times you see people in the stands and they're like, they're good. Then how good are they? But then you really test about these athletes that spend every day practicing their craft against someone who says, that's not so hard.
Well, and again, it also shows a certain looseness on your part to go out there and have fun. And
it is fun.
It is fun.
And it's good for the kids because it's a really relaxed atmosphere. It's not like I'm going out there looking for blood. So we have a good time with it. And some of these kids actually get to be themselves. They get to goof around like they do with their friends. They get to show a little bit of their charisma. They get to show a little bit of their personality. So it's a really fun time on both ends. It's really fun to film. It's really fun to edit. It's really fun to put together. And it's just something that and a lot of people like to watch it too, because especially people who know me as a former athlete say, John, what happened to you? Man, you weren't good, but you weren't like this. Granted, if we did a rebounding competition, I might have had him.
Or a fouling
Or a fouling competition.
Bottom line is this, we have to wrap up. It's great stuff. I just want to touch on this before we go. We have 3 live streams this weekend. William Penn Cedar Crest Saturday, 1 p.m. Hilda Goodling Impact Academy against Millersburg at 5 p.m. Friday. Christian School of York versus Lebanon Catholic, 4:30 p.m. Thursday. That already happened. And, of course, tonight we have York Catholic against Camp Hill. That's coming on right now after we get off the air. It was a great show. Game Day with GameTimePA here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. Thank you for listening, as always.